Welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 show to bring you all things Club America in English.
Oh, what a strike! Club America!
Your hosts for today are Ivan Pineda, Cristian Rosendo, Alexis Juarez, and everyone's favorite cowboy, Dylan Jimenez. Now let's hit the field and start the show.
America!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Eagle Eye Podcast. Today, we're going to be not recapping, previewing everything that is the Clasico Joven, and then we're going to give you guys up to date all things Club America. And without further ado, let me introduce tonight's co-host. It is none other than Chris Rivera himself. Chris, how are you?
What's up, brother? Feeling a little not under the weather, but allergies because California just doesn't understand seasons. I don't know if it's up there, but it was raining down here in Anaheim, so I have a little stuffed nose. But other than that, I'm ready, man. Ready to record and talk about this Clasico Joven.
Definitely, we got some rain too. It's been quite the weird weather situation here in California. One week it's hot, the next it's cold, the next it's raining. It's all over the place. But
Yep.
glad that you're ready to talk all things Club America Clasico Joven coming up. Right, a lot of expectations on this game, especially because of how last season's game ended. We'll get into discussion on that and whether or not we could see a potential repeat of a 7-0, and we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Right, before we touch upon the subject of America versus Cruz Azul, just a quick recap of what's been going on in Coapa at America for this week. Um, Everyone is pretty much training that we know about. Sendejas is good to go. I think he got the clear for a Saturday's game. He didn't get called up to his national team due to the whole situation that, America didn't really want to release him. He is crucial for Tan Ortiz, and in these type of games, especially already having a injury to his face, probably likely wasn't the right move to let him go. So, are you happy, content with the fact that Sendejas gets to stay in Coapa for the
It makes
next
sense.
week?
I mean, last time he went, we put him right away into a game, and you could tell he got injured off of that game. I wish we did the same thing to the Mexican players because, personally, for me, there's just no point in this game. I know some people might get bothered because it's a Clasico and national teams, but at the same time, why are we allowing 4 of our players? Like Araujo, okay, he doesn't really play that much. I understand. Like, let him go. But everyone else is like, they're too important, and it's way too late in the season for any injury to happen to them.
Yeah, no, of course, and I seen you've been very vocal about this
Yeah,
on
I've
Twitter.
been very
So,
bothered by that because it's like, man, why you let them go? Like, offer players that don't like. It's so pointless of a game. Like it's not even fecha FIFA, and it's like, okay, like then look at the youngsters. Why are you taking Henry Martin, who's banged up, right? He's kind of like iffy on these training the past 2 weeks, and it's like, why are we letting him go? Why are they calling him up? Like, shouldn't this be for younger players that are like, oh, we just want to see how they're doing? You already know what Henry is. Like, I understand Malagon. Okay, you want to see what Malagon's about, but why are you taking Henry Martin? So I'm very bothered by it. If an injury happens, it could potentially ruin our season. And you and I are very vocal about this. It's club over national team, so I don't care what the national team, if they win or lose a Nations League or a Copa Oro, I don't care. Like, just don't mess up our players.
yeah, no, of course, we need to have everyone up and running, and it does worry me a little bit because you know how these Mexico USA games go, right? There's an intense rivalry, and sometimes these games can get a little heated, and the US has a tendency of kicking some of our players in these instances. So, I just would caution. If I was America, I would be like, all right, you can have them, but no more than 45 minutes, kind of deal. Something like to
Yeah.
have some measures, some safety measures would be nice. But I mean, I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm very bothered. It's just like, man, they call no Tigres players, and it's like you're doing them a favor by that, and You're not doing anyone else a favor, you know.
Seriously.
It's like,
But I mean, that's besides the point. Pedro Aquino back in training, so that's a positive for America because it's always important to have your depth at full potential. I think the only one not training is Roger Martinez, if I'm not mistaken, and we already know the situation going on there, right? Seeing his last couple of weeks as an America player, regardless of what happens at the end of the season, I think he's the one player that knows he has an exit ticket. So good to see with how things are going on in that sense. Other than that, is there any more updates in regards to our players that you're aware of?
well, Henry, right? I think that was the other one. That was
Oh,
also he was training a little
yeah, Henry was training on the
separate,
side. Yeah,
but I think he's ready to
he's
go.
yeah he's doing some recovery work. They're trying to take it light with what he has going on. They don't really want to push him like that, especially because of the momentum he's in. Does it kind of remind you? And I know I may be trying to compare or draw lines here where there isn't, but does this kind of remind you of when Benzema was injured and the Real Madrid like would play him still, but slowly like they wouldn't really have him
Before the
do as
World Cup,
much.
right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then once he got there, he got like really badly injured, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, it does. It does remind me of that then, which
It gives me
which
a
is why it
sense
bothered
of
me so
reminiscing.
much, right? That he got called up and like I understand maybe from a national team perspective, Coca just trying to catch up, but at the same time, it's like, well, damn, can't you do that without like if it was Fecha FIFA, I don't care. You know what? Everyone's going everywhere, but it's like they made this game just to get money out of it, and then it's gonna cost us. You know.
Yeah, no, a money grabber at the expense of our players is never good. But I don't know, Henry. Here comes me with another one of my wild comparison, right? Henry kind of gives me Benzema vibes. I know they're not the same players, and mm, I don't think Henry has the capability of sometimes dribbling the way that Benzema does. But two very late bloomers in the game that are kind of killing it and tearing it up right now for their clubs respectively. I don't know. What do you think? I'm a little crazy here for saying those things.
No, because even from goal contribution, you see the compare. We're not comparing talent, right? We already know one's Benzema, right? Other one's Henry Martin. But from goal contribution, you see like Henry is part of goals, right? Maybe he's not scoring them or assisting them, but he's part of the play, and you see that a lot from Benzema, especially last game, right, against Chelsea. You saw that, and you see that from Henry. He's just there. He's just everything. Maybe a slower version of him, right? If you try to compare styles,
Yeah.
but I get exactly what you're talking about.
Well, there's your Henry Martin update, ladies and gentlemen.
I know.
And
Christian's gonna be mad about that comparison.
yeah, I'm sure he will. But hey, that's his fault for not being on here and trying to, you know, throw in his opinion in that sense.
He would have give us a look. He would have been like, "Really? Of every player, that's who you're gonna give him the player comparison."
Hey, I
I get it
just
though. I
I'm
get
going with what I'm
what you
seeing
mean.
though.
Yeah, you're talking about more style
Yeah,
than what they are. Yeah, I get you. I
yeah,
get you.
no, no, of course, yeah, of course. But yeah, those kind of the player updates right there in regards to Guapa. Everyone pretty much up and going. I think we should have a full squad. No one else should be out. Only exception of that, of course, is Roger Martinez. In other news, I don't think there is anything to highlight. There hasn't really been um, any real kind of newsworthy outlet moment. I think not even the club has confirmed it, but Monterrey confirmed that they're into the CONCACAF Champions League next year, which means that our crazy math that confused everyone last podcast was accurate. So yes, we are officially in CONCACAF Champions League. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you guys listen to the last part of that podcast, and you guys can be as confused as all of us. Um, and Jose Sabuda saying Roger Martinez sucks. That's the best news of the day. And Jose might have something might be correct in that statement. Who knows? But all right, let's talk America versus Cruz Azul. And Chris, you pondered a very good question that I want us to start off with that, and maybe just
Perfect.
kind of introduce it to our listeners, because I think it's it kind of sets the tone for this match, if I do say.
It heats up stuff too if their fan base is listening to this, right? So,
Of course.
so do I want me to start it off, or do you want to set it up?
No, go for it. Go for it.
All right. So I want everyone to be involved in this. So comment if I'm wrong. Comment if I'm right. If, whatever your perspective is. But what I was telling Ivan was like, I want this to just sit with you for a week because this was after before the Rayados game. I told him, look, bro, we're gonna do this Cruz Azul game, and I want everyone to really think about it. So for me, in my opinion, I think the Cruz Azul quote unquote rivalry is not a legit one, and my argument for that is, if you really look at history, it's been a one sided beating when it comes to regular season, when it comes to finals. We've destroyed them. We've I know this. I'm not like trying to jinx us for this upcoming game because anything could happen. But what I'm trying to say is, you look at the history between America and Cruz Azul. The only reason there's a rivalry is because they were owned by TV Azteca, and now that they're not owned, it's not the same thing, in my opinion. I think you look at history; it's one-sided beatings. We've beaten them in finals. We're losing 3-0 and we end up winning 4-3. We just scored 7 on them. Like, in my opinion, like the only reason like we even talk about this Clasico is because their fan base is so obsessed with America, and it's to the point it's very cringe. Like, think about any Cruz Azul fan that you know. They hate Ochoa. They're, they're competing with Santi Jimenez success in Europe with anything any America Canterano has in Europe, right? Like everything about them is just like an obsessive hating ex that is just, like I said, obsessed. And in my opinion, like that's the only thing keeping alive with this rivalry. If you look at our history, it's one sided. We've humiliated them way too many times. And I think, I want people to really think about that. Maybe you disagree, maybe you have a different perspective, right? Because if you look at it, our top three rivals, it's them three, right? It's Cruz Azul, it's Chivas, it's Pumas, but you kind of understand the other two more than this one. Pumas is the Clasico of academy players, right? You hear the academy players always talk, "I will never play for Pumas because I hate them." We that's a team that we fight against every single time in the youth tournaments. And Chivas, logical, right? It's two biggest fan base in Mexico, and we just can't stand them. They can't stand us. But what is Cruz Azul's rivalry? Like, I don't understand. Like, they used to be owned by TV Azteca, and TV Azteca has an obsession with Televisa. That's all it really is. You even hear them in their arguments. They can't stop talking about Televisa, you know? So, in my opinion, like, that's just a made up rivalry. It's one sided. I would go as far as saying like I said, the I was gonna say Toluca has been more of a rivals, but I think that's probably a reach. But even from like the only thing keeping it alive is one, we see them in finals, right? And two, their fan base is just obsessed. So I want you guys to just give me your insight on that opinion.
You bring up some really good, interesting points right there. I think there's an argument to be made with what you're saying, right? I do think that there is maybe a lack of intensity in these past couple of Clásicos, but it's not to say that they haven't had our number in previous occasions, right? I mean, don't forget, it wasn't too long ago that you mentioned we got battered 4-0 by them. And so there's kind of still this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? A sense of
Competitiveness.
pride. No,
Okay.
and there's the competitiveness, of course, but
Okay.
there's this sense of pride and ego that still is clinged onto this. And since America maybe has the upper step on this, you kind of feel like, oh, okay, like you have to go and win. And I think that forces, not to say that America never goes into any game not saying that they don't have to win, but it maybe adds a little bit of pressure because you're thinking to yourself, we've had their number for so long, we've embarrassed them for so long. There's this added weight that you don't want to be the team, or you don't want to be this this team this season that doesn't get the job done like teams prior, especially in the year where
Mhm.
you're trying to be a title contender and you're trying to kind of showcase, especially after that performance against Monterrey. You want to go and you want to be able to ridicule them, but you know that you have to not feel the pressure, and it's kind of hard to do so when you do those comparisons just like that. Now, I do think that you have a very good argument, but I kind of want to throw it to a couple of comments here that I think are pretty pretty interesting. We have Jose Sepulveda saying, I'm gonna have to disagree with your statement. I'm about 20 years older than you, so believe me, this is a Clasico. It's what is it? Hold on, I'm trying to. It never gabbled beating them though. I'm assuming there's a
I
typo
get
there.
what he's saying, but what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say is how it got created, right? It got created for the simple
yeah,
fact that their ownership was
but
rivaling
let's not.
our ownership, and you get
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Uh,
Obviously, too,
and-
right? It's the two biggest TV stations in Mexico going at it. Although, but I think there's more to this because actually, wasn't that the reason why they said America versus Morelia was a clásico,
yeah,
right?
they
El
used to say
clásico
that too.
de Monarca, because it was TV Azteca's Prodigy versus Club America,
Yep.
and
And,
I think that's
and my thing is
the
but they did it with Cruz Azul too, though, because Cruz Azul was the successful one. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm wrong in that, but what I'm trying to say is you listen to their fans too, and it's all like planted in their head, like, oh, Televisa this, oh, we hate you because of Televisa. Why you hate us because of a television program or a company, right? Like they bring up the most irrelevant stuff, and I understand what you're saying too about oh, they've beaten us 4-0 and stuff like that. But then you think about it, like no one remembers any of that. If you talk about the rivalry, right? You never think about any peak point of Cruz Azul beating us like that. I know they beaten us in the final, but look at how many times
yeah.
we've done that.
Now I
You
was gonna
know?
say I think our generation didn't suffer with what the past generation had to endure, because Cruz
Yeah,
Azul did have our number. Because back in the 80s, no, sorry, excuse me, the 70s, when they were this huge, very successful club, and they were winning championship after championship, they ridiculed us a couple of times, right?
yeah.
And maybe they started making that argument, and then Tebasteca gets involved and all that stuff, and what you kind of get into is probably more of the modern day situation. But I think that there's still a rich history behind all of this
Mhm.
that I think still merits to have a kind of quote unquote classico tag to it, right? Obviously, the classico is always going to be the classico. That's Chivas, right? That nothing, no one's going to take anything away from that. Like that has too much history embedded into it
Even the
for
Pumas one,
anything to come
no,
close to it.
no one's gonna
And the
take away
Pumas
the
one too.
because Pumas
No, of course,
is
because
our
there's
most academy, most hated like team, right? And
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
like us, we don't like them. That to me is more of the derby that people try to say Cruz Azul is because it's the same city, you know.
No, I
So
think
that's why I
it's. I
question the
think
Cruz Azul one. You
yeah.
know, I get everyone's perspective. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I'm right. No, I get it. I want you guys to give me your feedback, give me your perspective, and for me, I just started questioning it a lot. Like, I see some of these Cruz Azul fans talk about it, and it's like the same thing. Like, why do they hate Ochoa so much? You know, like why do they hate Edson? There's some that are still obsessed with Linus, and Linus doesn't even play for us anymore. They plays for Tigres. You know, you get what I'm trying to say? Like, there's too much obsession over there, and I started questioning, like, well, what? Like, is it just hurt feelings? Is it just like
I think it's hurt feelings, of course.
like they still try to give this Corona and Ochoa debate, and it's like, well, what are you basing it off of? You know, like why do you never talk about Talavera, right, or anybody? Like it's always just them two, and then it's like
Yeah.
you get what I mean. So that's why I thought about it, and and I hear you guys' points. I'm not gonna sit here and say you guys aren't wrong or right. You know, you guys just are completely right about what you're saying, but I still have my doubt about that.
And rightfully so, right? Because I think you made some pretty good points in your statement as well that I think merits to be kind of discussed about as well. I like Crew Epicness's comments. Says I love watching this Clasico because we win.
and it's
Yeah,
true.
he's not wrong. Technically, for the past couple of years, it's been a very favorable game
For most of
for
at least
us.
my life has been like that, you know. And then you talk about the finals, and then like I said, we're losing 3-0 and we went 4-3. I remember how mad I was when we are down 3-0. I went to my madrina's house, and then I was like, I'm just gonna turn on the TV while we wait, because I was going to like a family party, and then like I went crazy, right, because of the comeback. And in my head, that's what the reason I'm questioning a lot of these things. Like I don't remember any bad moment against them in my life.
No, yeah. I mean, which is good, and that's kind of how we want to keep it going for like an eternity, if we're being honest.
Exactly.
And that's why I said I think it adds a little bit of added pressure into this game that I think a lot of, because you're not the only one, but I see a lot of people on Twitter saying, "Oh, this is kind of like an easy dub in a sense," and I don't think it's gonna be that case, and we'll get into the details as to why. But I don't think we can give Cruz Azul that the benefit of the doubt and be like, okay, this is gonna be an easy game. We don't have to kind of. I don't want us to go into this game overconfident or relaxed, and then end up having our face get thrown into the mud. That's not also what I want. But I think the argument here you're making is, can you actually call this a Clasico, right? And I think there's an argument because of the history. Yes, you can, but in recent years, right? We're talking about the past, what, 5 years, maybe even more. There hasn't really been a rivalry, right? Like you mentioned, it's very much a one-side beating. But it's kind of like what Carlos is saying right here, right? It's that the euphoria of it as well that I think helps it ride and gain and all that stuff in regards to getting traction as being called a clásico, right? And there's a reason why it's called a clásico joven, because it's smaller than the rest, right? Not just time wise, but also because of the kind of importance, if that's the right word to use. I don't really think it's up to the standards of an America Pumas, you know?
I'll say this though, because I don't want to completely trash them either. Out of the other rivals, Cruz Azul has been the most consistent when it comes to being competitive. People want to talk about their drought that they had in league, but they did win in other tournaments. So I'll give them that, right? For me, I question it because a lot of what like behind them, what's behind them, what you hear, and it's just obsessed. It's just being obsessed. To me, it's like they hate us because they aren't us. I think that's the perfect example of just describing these two teams, right? They hate us because they're not us. They were owned by TV Azteca, a television group, and we were owned by Televisa. And one is one, the other one's two, and it's like bitterness, in my opinion. Even when it comes to like playing in La Azteca, they know that's not their home, but they'll brag about it like it is, and it's like, come on, we know the reality of everything. With the bold
No, yeah, of
statements.
course.
I get it. Look, I get it. It's very bold, right? I get it. It's very bold, but I want everyone to just like hear me out. And I'm not saying I'm completely confident with what I'm saying either, but it is stuff that I just look at and observe, and it's just like, well, I don't know.
Well, it is a very good observation on your part as well. So I mean, it brings up a good discussion. I'm not gonna argue that the fact that it's actually a very good conversation starter, right? Whether or not this is a classical. I want you guys to go and ask your next best America friend and ask them the question: is Cruz Azul a true rival? Can they be considered a clásico within the
Add us
past
too.
couple
If you're
years?
listening to
And at
this,
us, yeah.
like later, add us. Give us your opinion, your perspective. Like
And you
maybe
know
I'm
what?
wrong.
We're gonna
Maybe
do. No, yeah.
continue.
Who knows? I mean, no, no, no. I was gonna say maybe we'll even do a Twitter poll on Saturday, the day of the game, and and we'll ask the people whether or not that this is actually a Clasico, and we'll let the public decide, right? So if you guys don't follow us on Twitter, make sure you guys do at Eagle Eye Podcast. We're gonna be over there. We have a bunch of content that we throw out there, a bunch of tweets that we try to interact with you guys, and so make sure you guys follow us. But we'll throw out a Twitter poll, and we'll let the public decide whether or not they want to call this a true Clasico, which I think there is still the argument to be made that it is. And it's not that I have nerves when it comes to Cruz Azul, but there's still kind of this jitter of like, okay, this game means something more than just 3 points. And I think if and when that feeling never fades away, then I think that's when I'm kind of gonna go on your side and be like, yeah, this is probably something that we can kind of, you know, take off as a classico in a sense. But as of right now, from what my perspective is and from what I think is going on, this is a classico, and I'd love to hear both sides. I'd love to hear people that are on your side, Chris, and I'd love to hear people on my side as well. So it'd be definitely interesting. But there you guys have it. Chris is always the one with the bold statements here at the EY podcast. You can always expect them to have them. So I just kind of want to address something real quickly. Jason said America needs to qualify to CONCACAF Champions League. We actually already discussed this at the beginning of the podcast, and we discussed it last podcast as well. America has officially already secured a ticket into the CONCACAF Champions League. Now, whether they end up in the round of 16 or in the rounds prior to that is all up to them, because they need to, well, potentially be champions in order for them to secure themselves a spot in the round of 16. I know Jose Sepulveda was asking as to how those rules work. And right now, America has secured themselves a spot because within the 2 seasons, which is the Apertura and the Clausura right now, adding the 2 points that they've made together, America qualifies as the second best team in the league behind Monterrey. So, if you guys want a little bit more of a conversation, an explanation, listen to the last podcast. It's a little confusing, but if you hear like 3 or 4 times over, like I did, I think we make a little bit of sense, Chris.
Yeah, I mean the math hurt my head, but I think we did we did good enough.
No, yeah, of course. And then Jason goes on to say that my profile picture looks like Bruno Valdez. And funny enough, it's not the first time I've gotten this comparison. I keep getting it the abundance of time. Whenever I would post a picture on Twitter or something like that, they'd be like, "Is that Bruno?" Especially when I was in my America jersey. So I thought that's funny. But the funniest comparison I've ever had, or not I have had, but the funniest comparison I've ever heard is when someone called Christian Cecilio Dominguez. I absolutely love that comparison.
Okay, I get Ludueña, but I don't get.
Yeah. So make sure you guys go go at Christian and you know
And tell
Cecilio
him,
Dominguez. He's our Cecilio. Yeah, tell him that he looks like Cecilio
tell him
Dominguez
that
next
he's
time
the
you guys see
reason
him.
his Argentinian club is disappearing.
Oh yeah. All right, let's get back into the subject of America versus Cruz Azul. Both teams kind of looking to secure themselves 3 points here. Cruz Azul, quote unquote, the home team, but like you mentioned earlier, Chris, right? There is no such thing as a home team when you're playing in our own backyard. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this America side lines up. And Cruz Azul coming into this one with a draw against Leon. So I think they're definitely trying to scale up the table right there in eighth place. They need 3 points desperately, while America also needs 3 points to fend away the likes of Leon, Pachuca, and Chivas, who are trying to breathe down our necks. And maybe, just maybe, if some results go our way, get ourselves into second place and, have Toluca right behind us. Now, it's not going to be an easy task to do whatsoever, but it is one that needs to get done. So, Chris, do you see any changes to the lineup in regards to how we went up against Monterrey to how we're going up against Cruz Azul?
No, I think the only question mark would be Henry, right? Depending on his health. But other than that, I think we do our the same starting 11. I think
Okay,
Fuentes is staying. We see Layun there. We see Sendejas. Maybe Sendejas doesn't start. Maybe it'll be shocking, but I think
no,
it'll
you're gonna
just.
see. Yeah, you're gonna see Sendejas with his Batman mask. He's gonna be Bat Sendejas. Um, I don't see him changing anything either. This is and also, by the way, for those of you that need a little uh, jogger of a memory, Tano Ortiz will not be uh, on the sidelines for this one either. He's serving his second game of suspension that he picked up against Leon for wrestling Narcamon, and so
WrestleMania.
he's at WrestleMania. Yeah, so he's not gonna be on there either. But we didn't even talk about that during the last podcast. But I don't really think there was an effect, like a negative effect of him not being on the bench.
You can
So
argue we look better without him.
yeah, we
I
kind of
think
looked a
because
little bit better without him there.
the subs weren't
So
bad, and usually that's what you criticize Tano for the
yeah,
subs. but we actually look pretty good. Hopefully, it continues
Yeah,
into this game.
I agree. So I think it's gonna be the same starting 11, right? Malagon in goal, Layun on the right, Fuentes on the left. In the center back position, we're gonna have Israel Reyes and Cáceres. Will this be another game where he gets stitched up and bandaged up? We'll have to wait and see. I would put money on that, to be honest. He's been band-aid up for the past four, no, excuse me, 3 games. This could be the fourth one in a row. So
Even
be
before that,
interesting.
no, didn't we used to talk about his do rag?
Yeah, like
I know AJ
this
used to
man's
make the jokes
rocking the
about
do
that.
rag.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's gonna be your back line. In the midfield, obviously Fidalgo, who has a lot of criticism on him right now. Richard Sanchez. On the left, you're gonna have Capsita Rodriguez. Of course, he needs to score, right? Lele de Alex needs to kind of pay dividends in this. And then on the right, we said Bats and Dejas. And then in the center attacking mid position, Diego Valdez, a key player if America want to do something important in this game. And of course, on top, Henry, aka Benzema Martin. So I mean, why would you move it, right? You beat Monterrey, and you probably arguably looked the best you've ever had in the past couple of games, maybe with
yeah.
the exception of what the, the couple of minutes against Leon. I don't know. Honestly, I can't remember another game where we looked that
First
great.
half of Leon, but
No, the
yeah.
first half of Leon was terrible.
Well, you said the last time we looked bad, right?
Oh no, the last no, I said I can't remember the last time we looked this good.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think. I mean, I like it. There's no reason for us to move anything. I think, like I said, the only one that you might not start is Henry because of his whole hasn't been training 100%. But I think he plays. I think
I mean,
they have a lot of
if
trust in.
no, of course, I do think that he starts too. But let's say in a crazy world, Henry doesn't get the start and Vinas does. How confident are you in Vinas if he does get the start?
I mean, you know how hard I criticize him, but I think he wouldn't be that bad if I'm being honest. I think he's a good link up player, and I think a player like that could make Cabecita, Valdez, and Sendejas look really good. But he just can't be that you can't overfeed him because I don't think he'll ever
Yeah.
be a top scorer like that. But I do think he's a really good link up player.
This it'd be interesting to see, like for whatever reason, right? They're like, you know what? We don't want to risk Henry. Vinas is coming off a great goal against Monterrey. Let's throw him to the wolves. Let's see what he's capable of. That'd be a huge statement by Tan Ortiz. But again, I don't think he will. Henry, I think is fine. I don't think he's any risk of not starting this game. So the starting 11 should be intact. The same way you saw it against Monterrey is the same way you're gonna probably see it against Cruz Azul. So I talked a little bit about Fidalgo. A lot of criticism on his department right now. What do you think's been wrong with Fidalgo for a second here? He hasn't seemed like the player of the past. And let's face it, last season when he played against Cruz Azul, he had one of his best games ever. Is this a game where he finally kind of wakes up and maybe takes that mantle back as being the talisman in the midfield?
I think it's possible. I mean, Fidalgo hasn't had one of the worst seasons. Like it's not bad. It's just not what we came to looking at, right? I think it's gonna be a tough matchup. I think a lot of people are hasn't really paid attention to Cruz Azul. They're not scoring like crazy. But if I'm not mistaken, they've only gotten scored twice since Duca got was assigned as a coach. So I think it's going to be a very defensive game, and I think Fidalgo is going to have to win those midfield battles whenever we get countered. If that's the approach they go with.
I just kind of want to read a little bit of what Crew Epicness says. He's been losing the ball a lot more and doesn't seem to fight as hard. And this is coming from a Fidalgo stance, so it's a little hard for us stands to criticize our own players. But when we do, I think that's a showcasing of something isn't clicking, and I do think that I don't think it's necessarily worrisome, but I do think that there's this added pressure to Fidalgo that he needs to find a way to ride through and play through this. Again, No one's ever gonna doubt the talent that this guy has, right? I was gonna call him a kid, but then I remembered he's 24 years old. There's no such thing as a kid anymore at that age. Um, he's talented. He's capable of doing things, and I don't know what's going on, but something needs to be a wake up call for him. And if we weren't so late into the season, I would say bench him, right? Kind of wake him up, snap him out
That's
of it.
tough too. That's tough to say because
Yeah, no, I
like
know, but we're
you
not
don't really like the
we're
option
not in a
either.
position to do that right now. Let's just face it. We're not in a position to bench him. We kind of have to ride or die with Fidalgo. So, um, and all this heavy criticism, who knows? He might go out there, he scores a hat trick, and then we're over here all looking like fools. So,
Well,
right?
the most
That's
frustrating thing is his decision making, especially last game.
yeah,
I don't know if it was just me, but he also gave awful passes. Like I said this last podcast, but there's moments where he could have just shot, but he doesn't have the confidence in shooting from distance. I don't know why. I would assume he has a foot for it, right? Because I mean, he has every. He's a very
I mean, you
good
saw it last
midfielder.
season against Cruz Azul.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, just like he'll try to pass it into tight coverage, and it's like, come on, man! Like you have the best option, and you go with the worst option, right? If you're not
Yeah,
confident in shooting
yeah,
from distance, then okay, like pass it back. Don't just give it away to like tight coverage. 'Cause maybe if it does go through as a goal, right, and we praise you, but if it's a difficult pass or shot, you just don't take it. Like it's okay. Like, you can pass it back. We saw it with in the Solari era that you don't. If it's not there, you're not gonna waste it, right? A lot of people would get frustrated, but at least personally, like I would understand. Like okay, bro, like you're just not gonna give away the ball like that, and I respect that.
yeah. No, I do agree that sometimes he tries to force a pass a little bit too much, which I don't really see why. Um, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, all this criticism is for a reason, and hopefully he can turn around and right have praises the way he's been having them for a while. Because there's a reason why the Americanismo fell in love with him, and now he just has to continuously give them a reason to do so. Because this season has not been it for him, and well, we'll see what happens. Another interesting topic that I kind of wanted to discuss when we're talking about the starting 11 is Luis Fuentes, right? Someone that appeared out of the random, and it was probably due to the fact that Chavez wasn't doing his job. But I don't know. Did you hear on Twitter that apparently he did not play a couple of games due to the fact that America doesn't want to renew his contract automatically?
It makes sense. I mean, it's kind of lousy of us to do it, if I'm being honest, but it makes sense. Like older player that you just want, you just want to get rid of because not get rid of, but I do think it's time to look for someone in that position, right? Omar Campos from Santos has been rumored a lot, which I would absolutely love, but you got to get rid of one of the left backs in order to open up space for that. And let's be honest, it's probably easier to get rid of Fuentes than it is to get rid of Chava Reyes.
No, yeah, I agree. I think that's the easier output. But I thought it was interesting that, America kind of doing Fuentes dirty when Fuentes has probably been one of the more loyal servants on this side. But I guess you're not wrong in saying that it's no surprise either, too, because he is aging, and apparently America is looking into the possibility of obviously bringing in someone else and having Fuentes go. But in the drastic situation that America is not able to get a left back, they'd be willing to renegotiate his contract for another 6 months. His Fuentes has been on this 6 month contract like crazy, and it's crazy that he keeps getting
Remember, he
renewed.
left. He left, and in the
He
end of the
left.
transfer window, we signed him back.
They're like, hey, they
Like,
probably
hey,
texted
like
him like at 2 in the morning, like, hey, you up?
seriously. Wait, it's
But
crazy. I mean, I don't mind him on the team, but if the approach is, hey, we're gonna go somewhere younger, and we know that Baños is not good at getting rid of players, then you got to get rid of the easiest player, right? And that's
yeah,
Fuentes. I know I think most people would agree that Luis Fuentes has been better than Chava Reyes, but maybe Chava Reyes' contract isn't easy to just move, right? I don't know how long he has his contract with us, but it could just be one of those things where it's not easy, it's too much, no one's gonna take it, and we have this horrible habit of sending players on loan and we pay their whole contract, and I'm sure America's not trying to do that anymore.
Yeah, hold on. Jason put Jason said, "Damn, Fuentes has been very reliable. He's like a 2000s Honda with 200k miles and still running good." That is the best comparison I have ever heard in my life for Luis Fuentes. shout, shout out to Jason for that comment. Absolutely spot on right there. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's the most reliable player that America has, but he's also the most oldest player that America has, and I think that's the reason why they're hesitant on getting him that extension. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that's your starting 11, and I think coming into this game, we mentioned that there's kind of this added pressure because if it's a quote unquote classico, and I'm honestly because of the last beating, I think it adds even more pressure to America doing. I'm not saying that they have to go out there and win 7-0 again, Chris, but don't you think that there's this added pressure that you have to kind of follow up the second act? It's like when a movie does really good and then you have to go and make a sequel, you know?
Yeah, I'll put it in boxing terms. You can't fight with your hands down because that other guy already knows that you knocked them out, and this is the rematch. But if you go down with you put your hands down, that guy's gonna try to do the same damage that you gave him. And I think America needs to be ready for anything, right? Maybe they come in with not, I heard Richard say they asked them if they're scared of us, right? And Richard said they probably are scared, but that doesn't mean that they're not gonna go in there swinging. So I think America needs to just have their hands up, ready for anything and ready to punch back.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I saw that too, where Richard was like, "Yeah, they're probably," but he's like, "I don't like to talk outside of the pitch. I like to do all of my talking inside." So it looks like this team mentally is prepared for this game. There's a lot on the line in regards to this, right? 3 points, the Clasico kind of nostalgia, the braggy rights, yada yada yada, and the history of having to continue to be the team that humiliates Cruz Azul. Like that's the reality of it. So I think they're gonna go in that knowing that. And to be honest, this is another perfect game to keep working at getting better as a team. You saw a great game against Monterrey, but you didn't see a great defensive game in that one. And this might be a chance where again you step it up. You give Cabecita a goal or two, or you give Diego Valdez the confidence to keep going. Give him a goal. Give Henry another goal for the league leader title. Right? Give Sendejas
Yeah.
going that he looked absolutely hungry. So keep feeding your attackers, work on the defensive side of things, and keep implementing your game because you know deep down inside that the Liga is right around the corner and you need to start building up some form. You need to go into the Liga hot and ready, and this is the game to do it, right? If Monterrey was the catapult, then Cruz Azul, Pumas, and Juarez need to be the steady road that's going to get you to the Liga in order to kind of cement yourself as the team that you want to be. So that way you go into the quarterfinals, knock it out of the ballpark, get into the semifinals, get through that hump that's been a hump for the past couple of years for America, and then get yourself into a final and go from there. What do you want to see from America this Saturday, Chris? What do you want to see for a good, solid match?
Uh, I I so I don't want to underestimate them, right? I know I just went on some little rant about how it's not a classico and whatnot. Well, forget what I said from a history standpoint, but I want them to have the mentality of this is Chivas all over again, right? I want that mentality. So I want them to approach it just like Chivas and go for those goals early and have their fans just like we had Chivas fans leaving in the 35th minute. Like I want that. Now, I also understand that Cruz Azul under Tuca is a very good defensive team, right? So we really have to break through. And I think a perfect way for us to start the game is to just score early and be like know that hey, like on a counter, like they're gonna be defending either way, but we gotta like just pressure and score early.
And funny enough that you talk about that early goal, and it's something that we've kind of preached about for the past couple of games. We haven't had an early goal since the game against Chivas, right? And I said that America has a tendency of scoring within the first half, right? They love a first half goal, especially an early goal at that. But we haven't seen that in the past couple of games, right? The frustration of the first half against Leon, right? The kind of bad luck to concede first against Monterrey. But now we need to flip the script and be the ones kind of controlling the game from the get go. Get that early goal, like you mentioned, and kind of then dictate the play, right? Because you mentioned it. It's going to be a Cruz Azul side that's going to be well organized in the back. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for America to break it down. Although we know that this team has a really smart way of penetrating defenses when they do try to sit back. It's not the prettiest of things, and sometimes Dominica does have to be a little bit patient. But if you're able to break through, get yourself a goal, then that obligates Stuka to try to find something different, right? And maybe open themselves up to being more vulnerable to attacks. And America with the snatch and grab, that is our bread and butter. America loves the counterattack whenever they get the opportunity, because the speed and pace that we have and the precision that we have, although we didn't see it so much against Monterrey, but the precision we have moving forward with our passes within the final third has been very good. I don't know if you've noticed it, but sometimes when America gets into like kind of these little 1-2 passes in tight spaces, we look very comfortable. Like we don't look like in previous years where you think, this might just end up with us losing the ball and getting countered. But we actually find ways to get the ball kind of fluidly moving from one player to the next. So I think that's, a plus on America. And now going into this game, knowing that you're going up against a very good, well tight defense, you got to find a way to get those kind of small passes going and break that line, penetrate the defense, get a goal, and then manage the game from that point on. So I agree with you, Chris. I think an early goal is crucial, if not detrimental, to this America side. Because the last thing you want, honestly, is going into the half going 0-0 and thinking, wow, this is not the way that we expected this game to go. And it definitely was not the way that this game went last season.
Yeah, and also like their attack isn't really like impressive in my opinion. So I think just being, I don't want to say overconfident, but just knowing like if we score first, they're not gonna be this big threat, because if they score first, then they're comfortable with like saying like, all right, you guys could pressure us all game long now. Like we're confident you're not gonna get that goal, right? While if we get the first goal, well now they're the desperate ones, and now they have to go and pressure, and I don't think they have the players. Maybe I'm wrong, right? I'm looking at it from a paper standpoint, but to me, they're not necessarily that impressive offensively compared to how the last few games they've looked defensively.
Agreed. Well, we'll have to wait and see what we will ultimately see on Saturday. But it's going to be interesting. No, nevertheless, it's going to be interesting. I think I need to see. I think we mentioned already Fidalgo having a much better game. Richard orchestrating the passes the way that he's been doing, and he gets sometimes very high up in the attack, which leads Fidalgo to do a little bit of the tracking back. But it works. I don't know why, but it tends to work for America, the way that these two play together. And then Diego Valdez, right? When he's on it, and we've seen such a good America side when he does. So I think that triangle of midfield has to perform a really good game in order to kickstart this America, and I mean, kind of just run with it until you get to the league and keep going from there.
Yeah, this is where the momentum needs to start, right? I know it's not like we're losing games or anything, but this is where it's important to just look impressive from here on out heading into Liga. Because once we get Liga, we get a week off, right? Once if we make Liga, and a lot of the time that week off kills a lot of momentum. Well, I would like us to look really, really good to the point where the momentum doesn't die off, right? Like how we looked last year with against Puebla. Just we really gotta treat these last three games as the best workouts, right? The best everything.
Oh yeah, agreed. Crew Epicness saying, I just don't like that Fidalgo waits for the refs to stop the game because of a foul, but more times than not, they don't stop the game and we lose the ball because he stops in his tracks. And I've noticed that a lot because he kind of just wants to feel protected by the referees, and you have to play to the whistle. Like, let's be honest, and at this point, with our trajectory with the referees these past couple of seasons, I don't think we should even ever rely on a referee to call or to make the right call. So if I'm Fidalgo and if you're listening to this, Fidalgo, just keep playing, right? You just got to keep playing.
If you're listening to this, send Christian a signed jersey because he loves you too much.
Yeah, send Crew Epicness and Christian a jersey because they're your two biggest fans. So
Your stands.
Fidalgo, shout out to you. Your stands. There you go. I don't know, but let's talk predictions here. What are you expecting on Saturday?
I'll say a 2-0. I think I think we get the clean sheet just because I don't think they're that offensively good. I don't have everything on in front of me, right? So maybe I'm wrong, but the last few games in Stuka, they've only been able to win games and tie games without receiving goals, but I don't think they're that great offensively. Like I'm not afraid of Antuna. I'm not afraid of who's their striker. It's is it still Morales? No, right? Yeah.
Let's see. Their striker is. Don't worry, I'll tell you right now.
That's
Pulling
how
this up
like
right
bad
now
I
as we
don't
speak.
not bad, but how much I don't think their offense is that good. I know it's Antuna and I know it's
It's Antuna and Estrada. Well, Michel
Estrada, right?
Estrada.
Estrada, and then there's who's their left side?
Huesca.
Yeah, see, like stuff like players like those aren't
Rodrigo Huesca.
yeah. And I know Escobosa is going off for them, but it's Escobosa. Like I'm not that like they don't it doesn't scare
Yeah.
me. You get what I'm trying to say? Like I think and then it's
Yeah.
a
No.
former teammate, so I'm sure we'll get the best out of we'll beat them. You get what I mean? So I think I think a 2-0, maybe 3. I think our offense is going to be comfortable, is going to be flowing, and I think we're going to score.
I just love
Those
the fact that I'm hearing a clean sheet. That's music to my ears right now. To
it's,
be
it's
honest,
in my
we
opinion, it's
need that.
bad offense versus bad defense, and I think the defense is going to win. In my opinion, and then it's Tuca ball, right? Like it's Tuca ball is very defensive. It's very like stay back. Even a 0-0 is possible if I'm being honest with you. But I think
Yeah,
our
no,
offense is
you're
going to
not wrong.
yeah, but I think our offense is going to be a little bit too much.
Well, let's see. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. We'll have to wait and see in that sense. So you're going with the 2-0, potentially 3-0 victory for America. I like it. I love it. Clean sheet. I'm here for it all day, every day. Um, I'm gonna go with. You know what? I'll go with a 3-0. I'll be the one to say 3-0 on this one. I know it seems like we're very confident, and I mean, rightfully so with the game that we had against Monterrey. And if we can break down this Cruz Azul side the way that I'm projecting them to do so, then we're the real deal. So America has to
Yeah.
go step up 3-0. I would absolutely love it. Now, I personally will not have the luxury of being able to watch this game to my fullest detail. It is my baby shower this Saturday, so it's gonna be a little bit difficult to try to, I will be watching it. Don't worry. Don't think I won't be. I'll find a way to escape to the bathroom and catch a couple minutes here and there. But I'll I'll definitely be very much
Highlights.
attentive to our coverage to the and the highlights on Twitter as well. So make sure you guys follow us on the podcast Twitter as well, so you guys keep you guys up to date and everything. Jason saying congrats. Thank you again so much, Jason. Thank you to everyone really actually who's come out and say congratulations to us, and so mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys for everything in that aspect, and looking forward to that day. And what better way to top off the baby shower than by announcing the result to everyone at the party and saying America's not only done it, but they've embarrassed Cruz Azul yet again.
Hopefully, man. Hopefully, and then it's gonna be really fun when we record again.
No, man, it'd be amazing, absolutely amazing. Um, but I mean, do you got anything else to add on before we kind of wrap it up here?
So I was gonna ask you and the viewers, which has been outside of finals, which has been, or not outside of finals, but outside of league finals, which has been your favorite Cruz Azul win?
Oof.
I
outside
got
of
one.
finals.
It's random. I got one. It's pretty random.
I have one too, and this one always sticks to my mind because I don't know why, but it was when they were still playing in the Estadio Sur, and it was I can't remember the year, but Cabañas and Ochoa were like the two, and I
Was it
just
the Tito
remember
Villa goal?
Cabañas like nah, I don't. I just remember
Huh?
Cabañas like chipping
Yeah.
freaking Yosgar Gutierrez. I'd have to find out that game, but maybe that one. And
I remember
I
one
mean,
where
I'm not gonna
Tito
lie to
Villa
you, that seven
started.
zero was probably one of the best.
I can't hate on it.
Yeah,
Mine
no.
is the Liga final. That's what I'm trying to say. Like not like just league,
Oh,
no league.
okay. Yeah, that one's
But
good. That one's good.
mine was the Interliga final. I don't know if you guys remember that game, but I remember that game a lot because I gave myself a fever. Like it's funny. I was young. I was a kid, and I was stressing over that game so badly. And that's why I remember that game specifically because we ended up winning, and we ended up going to Libertadores. If I'm not mistaken, right? Because of that win,
Yes, yes, because the Interliga at that point gave you a straight ticket
Libertadores.
to the Libertadores. So I remember that game clearly too. It was a stressful one. I'm not
It
gonna
was
lie.
like back and forth. It was similar to that 3-3 game against Chivas, in my opinion. Because it was like they scored, we scored, they scored, like that type of game. And if I'm not mistaken, it ends in a penalty session, right? Penalty shootout.
Yes, correct. And we have to go
Yeah.
all the way to penalties.
Yep. And that's the reason why I choose that game. Because for me, like I gave myself a fever. I don't even know how old I was. I think I was in middle school or maybe a little bit younger. But I remember like everyone was in my parents' room and they were making fun of me, and I got all red and mad. And then we won, and I went crazy. But that's the one that stands out for me.
Oh yeah. I Yeah, I remember that game clearly too because it was here in Carson.
Yeah, the
So
stadium that changes every name every
yeah,
5 weeks.
it was a home it was a Home
The
Depot
Home
Center at that
Depot.
point, but
Yeah, it was a Home Depot center.
but I kind of want to read a little bit here. Jason saying, I mean, the 4-3 comeback was amazing, but that 7-0 was so fun. And it's kind of hard. I think a lot of fans will say either one of those two games just because of the epicness of both, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
really. So, there's been a lot of good America versus Cruz Azul games, and I'm
And
sticking
it's
with the
been
7-0.
very fun for us, by the way. That's why I wanted
Yes,
to ask you, like, which one has been your favorite? Because there's a lot of games that we could name, and especially when Chaco Jimenez was always talking crap about us, and we always beat them. It just makes it so much better.
Ricardo going with a 3-1 victory, saying "Gana el ave de las tempestades."
Nothing beats the
Very
finals, though.
comfortable in that
I
sense.
agree. I agree. Nothing beats
Yeah,
the final,
nothing's ever gonna beat the final. Obviously, that's gonna be
especially
the
the
final of the
2013
century.
one.
Yeah, no, yeah,
2013 one.
that's the final for America. So I think America has two finals that you know uh, we'll say are the finals of those centuries, right? It
Yeah,
is the one against Chivas and then the one against Cruz Azul. I think those are
yeah.
the two finals of each century, respectively speaking. So very much interesting in that sense. But you know what? I think that wraps it up for us. I think we've had a good time here. We've had
Yeah.
some fun talking Cruz Azul,
I
America.
ranted.
This is
I ranted for
yeah,
the first time.
you ranted. Yeah, and I liked
I
it.
say
It
thank
was a
you.
good
I thank you
conversation.
for allowing me to do that because I've always tried to just be chill with that. But I mean, a lot of people don't agree with it. A lot of people might agree with it. At the end of the day, I think it was
Yeah.
a perfect topic, right? Because I think, like, I just want to know, like, what does it mean for all of you that game, right? And if for me, I'm not going to say it doesn't mean anything, but like one of the homeboys said, we always win those clásicos against them. So if that's all it means, I can't hate on it. Then it's the perfect clásico for me because we're always gonna win.
Yeah, it was Krupnik saying that he loves these games
Yeah,
because we always have a
we always
tendency of
win.
winning them.
And
So,
if that's the
so
clásico,
yeah,
right? That's the how you have it. Then
then
I
so
can't
be
hate
it.
on it. It's perfect.
Absolutely agreed on that sense. Well, that kind of does it for us. Chris, any last words before we wrap it up here?
No, just everyone take care of each other. I don't know if you guys are in California. If you're in California, take care of your allergies because this weather is just bipolar, very bipolar.
Chris is gonna want this segment to be sponsored by Clarence and Clear. So
Yeah, man. As long as I'm not sneezing like crazy.
absolutely agreed. Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys who came out here tonight to have fun with us here and talk all things America, Crew Epicness, Jason, Carlos Diaz, Ricardo. Who else am I missing here? Really, honestly, everyone. Jose Sepulveda right here as well on the chat, and all of you guys who said congratulations. Thank you so much, and it means the world to me to have you guys' support and for you guys to congratulate me in such a big moment in my life, and I'm honored to be able to share it with all of you guys, really, and it means the world. So thank you guys so much. Again, we'll be back next week to talk all things America. Follow us over on Twitter as we'll keep you guys covered with all things Club America in English, and maybe you guys can vote on our Twitter poll as to whether or not this America versus Cruz Azul is still considered a Clasico. All right, Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out. And as always, guys, take care. And we'll see you guys soon. Until next time. And as always, Arriba America. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was another production of the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 source for all things Club America in English. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Eagle Eye Podcast and get all the latest news and coverage. And subscribe to our podcast wherever it is you may listen.